Hey y'all, this is Mr. Alexander, and I am going to show you everything we learned in class from September 2nd through September the 5th. And this is for Pre-AP Algebra 2 students at Stony Point High School. So this is what you need to know from these days. Let's start with a function. That function, first off, what type of function is it? Well, the log's a dead giveaway. This is a logarithm. And that parent function is f of x equals log of x. So I want to know, what's the transformation that took place here? Well, that's pretty simple. That minus 4 inside the parentheses tells me that it moves left or right. Now, I remember that whenever it's inside the parentheses, that's counterintuitive. So I know that this thing translated 4 units to the right. That minus sign inside the parentheses tells me that it moves right. Well, let's look at another function. So what kind is that? Well, that's an absolute value. And inside these brackets, inside these absolute value brackets, there's an implied set of parentheses. So again, this transformation from the parent function of f of x equals absolute value of x, it's happening inside the parentheses, it's happening to the x, so it's going to translate left or right. And since it's inside the parentheses, it's counterintuitive. And so what that means is that the plus 3 means that it translates 3 to the left. So inside the parentheses means that it's left or right, and that it's counterintuitive. Minus means right, plus means left. All right, let's look at another one. Let's look at f of x equals 10 to the power of x plus 4. The type of function? That's exponential. And that parent function is f of x equals 10 to the x. So what's that plus 4 do? Well, when it's not happening to the x, that means it goes up or down. And this one's not counterintuitive. This one's exactly what you think it is. This one translates up 4. So when it's outside the parentheses, it's going to be up or down. Let's look at another one. X cubed minus 3. Okay, that's a cubic. And the parent function for that is just x cubed. So what's that minus 3 do? Okay, it's not happening to the x, happening outside the x. And that means it's going to go up or down. This one's going to go down. Three. So inside the parentheses is left and right. Outside the parentheses is up and down. The last thing that we learned on the second and third was this one. What kind of function is that? Well, x squared, that's quadratic. Which is f of x equals x squared. And what's that negative do? Well, it just takes the whole graph and flips it over. We call that a reflection. In fact, it's a reflection across the x-axis. Don't forget about this across the x-axis part. That's important. All right, so this is everything we did on September 2nd and 3rd. On the 4th and 5th, we threw in multiplication. So let me show you one that looks like that. Okay, so what kind of function is that? The 1 over the x is the giveaway. That's a rational. And the parent function for that is just 1 over x. So what does this 4 times do to the graph? Well, it's either going to stretch it or compress it, vertically or horizontally. In this case, since the number is greater than 1, it's going to stretch it. And since it's happening not to the x, but outside of the x, it's vertical. So this is a vertical stretch by a factor of 4. I see another one like that. What kind of function is that? It's just an x. So that's a linear, which is f of x equals x. So the effect of multiplying by 1/2, well, it's still vertical, but this time it's compression because the number is between 0 and 1. When it's between 0 and 1, that's a compression. So we're going to say that's a vertical compression by a factor of 1/2. All right, there's only 2 left here. Let's take a look at this one. Cube root of 4 times x. And again, underneath the root, there's an implied set of parentheses here. Well, you've probably already guessed this is the type of function is cube root. And the parent function for that is cube root of x. Now, what's the effect of multiplying 4 next to the x? Well, when we don't do it to the x, that's vertical stretch or compression. When we do it to the x, that's a horizontal. And before, when I said you did something in the parentheses, that was counterintuitive. This one's going to be counterintuitive as well. So we multiply by 4. That's not going to stretch it out. That's actually going to compress it by a factor of 1 over that. So 1 over 4. Let's do one more. Square root of 1/3 times x. Well, you could probably recognize that as a square root function. And the equation for that is f of x equals the square root of x. So what's the effect of multiplying 1/3 there? Well, it's still horizontal, but now it's a stretch by a factor of 1 over this. 1 over 1/3 is 3. Okay, so there's 9 parent functions there and 9 translations we talked about. Let me flip this over and let's see if we can talk about each of them in general. So if we do f of x equals, in parentheses, x plus h, or x minus h being any number you want, this means that it goes right by h units. This one, oh, that's it. I already messed it up. This one is right by h units. Remember, I said this one's counterintuitive. This one is actually left by h units. Okay? Now here, if we do x plus k, or x minus k, this isn't happening directly to the x. This is happening outside of the parentheses. So imagine the parentheses are like this. This is going to be up and down. So it's going to be up by k. This is going to be down by k. Equals, equals, equals. These are all f of x. What if I do negative x? What's the effect of that negative? Well, that's a reflection across the x-axis. So So this is the stuff we did on the second and third. Left, right, up, down, reflect. Those are the 5 things we talked about. The 4 things we talked about on the 4th and the 5th of September are like this. If we do A times X, well, that's going to be a vertical stretch or compression. And it depends on what the A is. It's a stretch if A is greater than 1, and it's a compression if A is between 0 and 1. So a fraction. So if it was 1/3, it'd be a compression. 2 more. B times X. When it's happening inside the parentheses, it's counterintuitive. And now it's horizontal stretch or compression. And it's a stretch when B is between 0 and 1. So a fraction. So if it said 1/3 X, it's going to stretch it out horizontally. Stretch. It's going to be, I just can't spell that at all, can I? Stretch. That's better. It's compression when B is greater than 1. So if it's a 4, it's actually going to squeeze that thing in like it's a belt. And that's it. That's what we learned on September 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. These things. So what you need to know is how these things affect the graph. You'll also want to know all 9 of these parent functions. So make sure you memorize them, what their graphs look like. You can graph these on the calculator, these equations, and memorize their names and their equation, because you're going to need to know them for the rest of the year. And that's it. Thanks for watching.